What is up, YouTube? How y'all doing? Man, the mic is not. I swear, boy, I can't wait to get home. I'm gonna miss you, dear, when I go home. I am here. I'm trying to show the keyboard. I got a side view thing going on. It ain't working. This ain't working. I should go right back to forward view. But anyway, check this out, man. We back at Teacher Tales. Teacher Tales is tearing this thing up, man. Hey, breaking. Diddy suffers 2 major legal losses. Judge Dennis Key motions. Judge Dennis Key motion. Feds get huge win. Oh my gracious. Everybody keeps saying that the Feds is losing, man. Everybody keeps saying that the case, Diddy's case, the Feds, they don't have a lot of evidence, and they done lost one of the, victim 3 or something like that. They done lost victim 3. Come on, dude. Trust me, man. Trust me. We done already seen a video that said they got 3 new witnesses. Dude, they got about 30 witnesses. I'm just trying to let y'all know, man. They got over 30 witnesses and all this type of stuff. So look here, man. This is an hour-long video. So y'all sit back, grab yourself something to eat and all that good stuff. Hit that subscribe button, hit that bell. Hey, let's check this bad boy out. It is so hot in the Philippines, y'all. So let's check this bad boy.
Victim 3 has gone. Hey, what's up, guys? And welcome to day 5 of the Diddy trial. There is so much going on. Now, if you guys don't know, Diddy was crip walking in the thing. He really thought he got some major victories. The defense did some cute mess. They got the trial essentially moved. The judge is going out of his way to make sure that Diddy cannot do anything to get a mistrial, to get any funny thing going. However, in the middle of Diddy celebrating, let's not forget, there's a few things going on.
Yeah.
Hold on, y'all. Let's turn the light on. There's a few things going on. Victim 3, okay, is going missing. On top of that.
Yeah, we already talked about that. Victim 3 is missing. But you know what tripped me out is Victim 3 wanted to, first they wanted to keep quiet. Man, these people, come on, man. Y'all celebrities. Y'all ain't no real people, man. I don't understand. They're going to be quiet, don't want to take. Then she want to get all big and bad, say, I want everybody to know who I am. I'm not going to stay a Jane Doe.
There's other few things that are going on. Victim 3 has gone missing, okay? They have gone missing. However, we don't think they're going to leave it at that. On top of that, Diddy's team is now facing an even bigger legal battle. It looks like Diddy's whole battle about racism in the court and about suppressing the evidence that came out of the Miami and LA Rays. And baby, we are talking about the 1,000 bottles of baby oil on the wall. Oh my God. The judge just read Diddy down in what is the calmest dragging I've ever seen. And you know what? We apologize for everything we said to Judge Aaron because he is on the case with Diddy, and Diddy just lost 2 major motions today in court. TMZ ain't gonna talk about this. No one's gonna talk about this because this is not good for Diddy's team at all. And it literally lets you know that as much as people in the comments, and I do believe they're paid trolls, are talking about something, what are you talking about? Diddy this and Diddy that, it's no big deal. It leads me to believe that the amount of evidence the judge sees, because even though we don't know, Diddy knows his co-conspirators, Diddy knows his accusers, and Diddy knows all the evidence they have against him. They actually gave it to him a few weeks back. The judge has also seen it. And it lets you know that with the amount of evidence that they have against Diddy, the judge ain't tripping. They're like, all right. And this might explain why the prosecution, when Victim 3 said they aren't testifying, was like, I mean, if you want to come. If not, like, listen, one monkey ain't stopping the show.
There you go. That's what I was trying to say. Look, you know, we got so much stuff on. We got over, 30 years? He been doing this for 30 years, y'all. We got so much stuff, man. Roger Bonds, shout out to him. 190 celebrities at all these parties. Somebody done turned. You think nobody turned? Is that what y'all think?
Anyway, you guys, let's get into this crushing legal defeat that Diddy just experienced. And you guys, when I say you are not going to believe it, you are not going to believe this, okay? First off, Diddy had the BALLS to try to dismiss the superseding indictments. If you guys don't know, Diddy quietly made a motion to dismiss the superseding indictments. The superseding indictments was once they raided their house and they did a bunch of investigation, they came up with a list of everything that Diddy should have. The judge came back and said, absolutely not. We had the paperwork. We're going to get into the calmest dragging ever. He also denied another key motion that completely nullified the fact that Diddy bought a black woman on his team. If you guys don't know, the word on the street is Diddy's been looking for black woman lawyers for a while. He originally wanted 4 black woman lawyers, okay? Now listen, no shade to defense lawyers because they do God's work. Am I saying Diddy is God's work? No, he is a piece of work, but he is not God's work. The point of the matter is this new attorney that came on, I believe she worked as co-counsel with Young Thug, with Brian Still. She is supposed to be on her money. Oddly enough, she says that Tony Braxton's husband, baby, actually raped her back in the day and she pressed charges and I believe she was successful. Tony Braxton's husband and Lee Simmons alleged sneaky link. Yeah, that girl had a run-in with him and she actually pressed charges against him. The whole thing is she took it and people are saying that Diddy had promised any black female lawyer of repute that came onto his team that he would 100% pay a minimum retainer of $2 million. This is before they even do any work. This is just what they get for showing up. $2 million to come and stand and defend him. Now listen, am I faulting her? No. Everybody got to make their money 100%. Do I think that she will be used as a token? Absolutely. Do I think that racism in the legal field is super, super big, or at the very least microaggressions? Absolutely. Do I believe that if whatever they trot her out to do, maybe make the race argument doesn't work, that they will find a way to blame her and we will hear about how she's the incompetent one and shit? Absolutely. But for $2 million, baby, do what you got to do, right? Do what you got to do. He has not been able to get any other black women counsel. Again, we all know Mark Garagos, part of his legal, is calling the prosecutors a 6-pack of white women, even though they are a dozen of white women and men. I think it's odd. Anyway, y'all, we can talk about that later. Let's get into the way Diddy had his patootie handed to him in court. What y'all want to start with? We are first going to start with
here we go.
His first legal setback, okay? What is it, right? Okay, so we got to talk about it, okay? Diddy just got a devastating L. Let me put the paperwork up here for y'all to see. Diddy just got a devastating L. And again, his team is reeling about it. His team tried to suppress all the evidence the feds collected during those raids to his homes. We're talking about the phones. We're talking about the iCloud. We're talking about the videos of the freak-offs, right?
Right, yeah.
But listen, Judge Aaron wasn't having it, okay? And he broke it all the way down. This is high-key, super embarrassing and humiliating to Diddy's team. Every time Diddy thinks he gets a little win, Judge Aaron comes back and says, no. Again, my sources are saying that when you see the mountain of evidence, that is against it. So what happened, right? Here's the thing. We're about to go through the legal documents, but we need to get into this. There are 2 big things that Diddy's lawyers argued. One, his lawyers had the BALLS under clandestine submission to say that the feds lied and hid key facts in their search warrant request. And that means the warrants are invalid. And then they went on to say that even if they didn't lie, the warrants were basically general warrants, which are unconstitutional because they're broad and vague, like, oh, you can go search everything and we'll see what sticks. Diddy wanted a frank hearing, which is where you can challenge the truthfulness of a warrant. And guess what? The judge said absolutely not. And baby, the rest is history. Let's get into this. Hi guys, let's get into this. I'll scoot a little bit over and let's get into the screen, okay?
Okay, one of the things that tripped me out is when you get a warrant, that comes from a judge. So you mean to tell me you're going to sit here and say that this judge who granted this warrant did wrong? He didn't do his job right. So now you got a judge going after another judge and everything. And you got to remember, y'all got to remember that this judge has already seen the evidence. They got 90 tapes of, dude. All those judges seen something clearly on a video. Other than Cassie in that hotel room, they clearly seen something that says, no bail. No bail, cuz. And then this judge right here, indeed, you got the alcoholic people. Y'all keep forgetting about that. Somebody upstairs with some high power, right? Somebody with some high power is pushing to make sure this man suffers. That's just my opinion. Allegedly, that's my opinion, right? They want this man to suffer. We're going to teach you who's boss. We don't want you to Epstein yourself in jail. No, that's too easy. We want to clearly show you and all your fans, all the stuff you've been doing, your whole family. We putting you under the rocks. These people are doing this to him. Y'all don't realize how much power they done got the feds and everything. The judge is probably answering to him. Did I do right? I figured this out when I said the judge said I would deliver my information over the weekend. He said, so you got one denial, another denial, a bail, right? The last denial, whichever one it was on, the last one was, give me some time to think about it. So that now Diddy's in jail thinking, oh shucks, I might got a chance. Oh shucks, I think I got a chance. Oh shucks. And then they came back and said, that's suffering. That's suffering. People upstairs want him to suffer. That's all I want y'all to know. Now, let's continue.
History. Let's get into this. Hi, guys. Let's get into this. I'll scoot a little bit over and let's get into the screen, okay? They go on to say that, hold on really quick. Let me pull this up. I have it for y'all. We will do this. Okay, here we go. They go on to say defendant Sean Combs has moved to dismiss counts 3 and 5 of the superseding indictment, which charge him with violating USC 18 chapters 2421A of transporting victim 1 and victim 2 and commercial sex workers in interstate and foreign commerce with the intent that they engage in prostitutes. Okay. Diddy argues that these counts should be dismissed because they reflect a clear. Oh wait, no, I'm on the wrong one. Hold on, y'all. Hold on, y'all. Let's get the other one up. We'll come back to that.
Yeah, come back to that.
Sorry, that's me again. Just come on, give me a second.
Take your time, girl. Take your time.
There we go. Okay.
There you go.
Here we go. Sorry, guys. Anyway, let's get this going, shall we? Let me see. Okay, here we go. So they are saying that defendant Diddy, Sean Combs, moves to suppress evidence the government obtained pursuant to four 2024 warrants. In January 2024 warrant to search his iCloud accounts, a March 2024 warrant to search his Los Angeles residence, and a March 2024 warrant to search Diddy's Miami residence, and also March 2024 warrant to search Diddy's person and 2 cell phones. Okay. Now, interestingly enough, they did let out a little bit of tea. We had no idea that Diddy probably knew, as much as he played stupid, Diddy most likely knew that these raids were coming out against his house. Why is that? Because he moved to suppress evidence, again, January 2024. So in January 2024, they literally did a search warrant of all Diddy's iCloud accounts. Again, as much as he wants to play stupid, if you knew that they were searching your iCloud accounts, any lawyer worth their money would have said they're about to hit your home up too. But Diddy still didn't do anything because he thought he was untouchable. Okay. Secondly, he says that the warrants were unconstitutional general warrants. However, there's no frank hearing. No frank hearing is required. Judge Aaron said, under the Supreme Court's decision in Franks, a defendant seeking to suppress evidence obtained pursuant to an affidavit containing erroneous information must satisfy both a state of mind requirement and a materiality requirement by showing that the inaccuracies claimed or omissions claims are a result of the affiant's deliberate falsehood or reckless disregard for the truth, and the alleged falsehoods or omissions were necessary to the issuing of judge's probable cause finding. Okay, so what do you have to say? They're basically saying to meet the Frank standard, and this is a standard whenever you get evidence thrown out that's seized in a raid, you have to prove that one, they knew they were lying when they asked for the search warrant. So someone could have been like, yo, Diddy got like 13 hostages in this thing, and they're like, what? And if the agent genuinely believes that, and they go in front of the judge and they say, Your Honor, Diddy has 13 people in his basement. If the agent requesting the search warrant genuinely believes that there are 13 people in the closet, well, guess what? Okay,
get the warrant.
That's fine. Because it's not about whether you asked for it out of truthfulness, about what actually existed. It's about what you thought was in there. Do you know what I'm saying? If I think a dead body is underneath your backyard, and I'm searching, you cannot say, oh, never mind, because I pop up and I don't come with the body. There's a second prong also in the test that says, even if you did think, you knew you were lying, right? Even if you knew that the feds knew they were lying, you must prove that lie in any way, right, played a role in the probable cause finding, which is to say that it was necessary. So let's just say they went in and they were like, Yana, we want to request a search warrant. We believe Diddy has freak off tapes. We believe Diddy has text messages, and we believe Diddy has 13 limited edition Pokemon Go cards from circa 2008. Okay? And they could be lying about the Pokemon, but under Frank, which is the Frank standard, which is what Diddy is trying to use to get all this evidence thrown out, even if you were lying about the Pokemon, if the judge says, okay, fine, but I didn't just give the search warrant for the Pokemon, I gave the search warrant for the people in the basement and the text messages and iPod, that evidence would still be inclusive, okay? In any case, right?
Meaning that it's still good.
Judge Aaron said no Frank's hearing is required. I just explained what a Frank's hearing is. They said to obtain the evidentiary hearing on a Frank's motion, Diddy must make a substantial preliminary showing that he has met the standard, including the requirement that the affiant, and that's the person applying for the search warrant, that's the feds, including the fact that the feds made the allegedly false statement knowingly and intentionally or with reckless disregard for the truth, okay? They said the burden of this proof is a heavy one, and it's also a burden that Diddy has to meet. When you talk about burden of proof, when you're trying to prove someone did murder, the state has the burden of proof, or the federal government. The innocent person is like, I could just sit here, and if you don't show enough proof, I walk. I don't need to prove my innocence. You have to prove I'm guilty. Same thing with the facts. The federal government doesn't have to prove, oh my God, Your Honor, no, we didn't lie. We showed the truth. The federal government doesn't have to show that. Diddy is under, he has the burden of proof. So he has to show that the feds lie. And the feds can just sit there and be like, we don't know what you're talking about. Did you bring proof? No? Okay, that's what I thought. Yeah. There's more, right?
Yeah, that's right.
He goes on to say that the claim.
Hold up, man. So here's the thing that tripped me out. Diddy lawyer, I really think Diddy, I hope you hear this. your lawyer don't give a damn about you. I'm hoping you listening to this because he knows all this stuff. He been paid top dollar and he gonna ride it till the wheels fall off. Diddy, he riding you till the wheels fall off, bruh. You don't see that? He throwing everything out the book to keep that purse open. You know, we're gonna say that they didn't have they ain't had the right warrant. They had the Franks in there. The Frank, what did it say? The claim, misstatements, and omissions are not material. Yeah, they had that too. Yeah, we can get them on the Frank. Huh? Diddy like, you think so? Yeah, you know they ain't have the right search warrant. Okay, come on, man. Come on, man.
Just sit there and be like, we don't know what you're talking about. Did you bring proof? No? Oh, okay, that's what I thought. There's
Quoting
more, right?
Franks.
He goes on to say that the claim, misstatements, and omissions are not material. Listen, this is a legal read, and I'm going to break it down for you. Oh, also, you guys, hit the notification, hit that like, hit that subscribe button. I'm going to be going live every single day with the Diddy trial, bringing y'all the first day of trial. I promise I'm going to gag y'all, and it's going to keep going. When I say the things we have, let's not forget, if you're new to my channel, baby, we have been ahead of the curve for so much information. That basically even before Diddy's team knew it. So if you want to get a drop, if you want to get entertaining, and if you want to find out what the law really means, and outside of TMZ's bias, baby, you can come here. Let's hear it for independent media. Yes, I am independent media.
Yes, indeed.
Anyway, they said the court begins with materiality. It cites Loria. The materiality requirement is often considered first because, as the Supreme Court explained in Franks, if when materials that are subject to alleged falsity or reckless disregard is set to one side, there remains sufficient content in the warrant to support a probable cause. No hearing is required. That's what I said, even if you lied about one part of it. If there was other probable cause that was either in the warrant or that was found, then they just call it even. Again, for someone like Diddy, who cares? But Franks and Loria have actually been argued about. Did you ever hear those cases where the police break into the wrong home on a search warrant and they end up shooting somebody or hurting somebody, and then the people try to sue the police, and then they're just like, oh, whatever? This is the same law that they use to make sure. It is actually very, very hard to go against the government or to sue the government. Now, in this case, the government is using their powers for good, but in a lot of places they've used it for evil. This goes into my whole thing that I believe that Mark Agnifilo and Diddy's counsel has been bleeding him dry, because anybody would know that this motion.
Didn't I just say that? I just said that they making sure the purse is open. I just said that. Y'all would think I seen this stuff, man. I'm being real. I mean, if I was a big time lawyer and I had Diddy, and you know damn well I'm not gonna ever say it. I'm not even gonna say it to my wife. Diddy, you going to jail, man. But I'm down here with you. What, you wanna fight? You wanna keep fighting? Yeah, man, we're gonna fight with everything we got. I ain't gonna. Man, if you was a friend of Diddy's, you would have told him to take the plea.
Say they've used it for evil. This goes into my whole thing that I believe that Mark Agnifilo and Diddy's counsel has been bleeding him dry, because anybody would know that this motion would fall, especially considering they found a lot of evidence, including the Cassie video. But let's keep going. They said to determine whether.
This is the thing that tripped me out. I mean, because of the Lil Rod case, they saying that they had bad info to get this warrant in the first place. In the first place, they had bad info, right? But the thing that tripped me out is this. Okay, when they done got all this information, I'm trying to tell y'all, man, please understand. It is something on them tapes that they done showed that judge and said, nope, no bail for this mother. Now, they might have seen some minors in cages, which is pizza boxes. Get rid of the hot dogs and the pizza boxes. all that type of stuff. They see that judge seen something. I swear, y'all, that judge had to have seen something. Look here, Your Honor, this is why we shouldn't let him on bail. Yeah, we gotta keep him, cuz. We gotta keep him. And they know. The lawyers on Diddy's side, they know.
Misstatements or lies are material. Material just means central. I'm going to start paraphrasing because y'all need to hear all the legal jargon. To determine whether the alleged lies in any way justify the superseding indictment being thrown out, the court must set aside the lies in the application and determine whether whatever part of the application was true, right, is sufficient to support a probable cause or a necessity finding. Okay.
Facts.
They also go on to say for omissions, the better approach is to insert the omitted truths and then ask whether there is a residue of independent and lawful information sufficient to support a finding of probable cause. In this context, probable cause means a practical, common sense decision, whether given all the circumstances set forth in the affidavit before the magistrate's judge, there is a fair probability that contraband or evidence of a crime will be found in a particular place. So basically, they're saying that they're using the judge's common sense. If I say you're a criminal and you're running a RICO organization, okay, and maybe I put 20 on 10 and we get the search warrant, and then in the search warrant for sex trafficking and RICO, we find 1,000 bottles of lube and baby oil. We find literally semi-automatic assault rifles with the serial numbers filed off. We find all these vast hard drives that have freaky deaky tapes where a lot of them people didn't even know they were being taped. And we find corroborating evidence that the victims told us was true, and we found corroborating evidence. Well, baby, we're just going to use common sense. Again, it might have been a fishing expedition, but that's what happens when you have the power of the government. We fish and we caught a big whale, okay? Now, here's the thing. They said that even if, right, the court exercises the alleged lies and adds the allegedly missing information, Diddy still fails to demonstrate that the residue of the independent and lawful information in the affidavits is insufficient to support a finding of probable cause. Again, the judge is reading him down in legal speak, but he's basically saying, dummy, just because you feel like they lied or you feel like they put 20 on 10, that's not enough to get key evidence central to a sex trafficking case thrown out. Because if they knew exactly what they were going to find, well, then why do they need the search warrant? Because they already knew what they were going to find. Search warrants in themselves are fishing expeditions. All it does is prove that, right? They are in themselves fishing expeditions. All it does is prove, well, guess what? You literally, right? You literally are doing something illegal, and we are going to find out what that something is.
Man, come on, dude. Diddy can't be that dumb. Even his lawyer, Diddy and his lawyer, it can't be that dumb. I bet you any amount of money before Diddy even went to New York, he kissed his kids and let them know this is going to be a long hoorah. This is my final stage to the world. I'm going to fight this all the way to the end until y'all just put me under the jail. He had to know this, man. Dude, there is no way in hell this man is getting out of jail. I've been saying this from day one. You pulling out everything, man. This shit ain't gonna work. It ain't gonna work. You can't be this dumb. You cannot be this dumb. You know what's on them tapes, Diddy. You know what's on them tapes. You the one recorded them. Oh my God.
As it's proof, well, guess what? You literally, right? You literally are doing something illegal, and we are going to find out what that something is. Also, I want to say a big shout out to Super Chats. Jenny, thank you so much for the Super Chat. Victor went one step ahead of Diddy, okay? But y'all, there's more going on with this. Let me just fix one key thing so we can get this over with. 1 second, y'all. I would very much.
This is crazy, crazy.
evidence disrupts the government's narrative.
Here we go.
Let's get back into this mess.
Check.
The judge goes on to say, DIDDY'S admitted evidence disrupts the government's narrative that he forced victim one, who we can just call Cassie, to participate in freak-offs, which was fundamental to the SMEX trafficking charges identified in the affidavit. When the warrant applications were made, Diddy alleges the government had possession of the device that contained all the stuff. I guess it was videos, it was this and that. Let's not forget that Diddy actually got into Diddy's iCloud account. So they already knew the freaky stuff that was in there. Diddy also points to messages between himself and Cassie that he argues contradicts the government's claims that the freak-offs were coerced. And these messages, Cassie tells Diddy something, right? Diddy highlights a message that Cassie sent him after a 2018 interaction during which the government alleges that, of course, she was forced to engage in SMEX acts, right? Diddy also argued that these messages show the context of the relationship between him and Cassie, and contrary to her statements to law enforcement, Cassie and Diddy were actually involved in a long, complicated, and often loving relationship. Just hear this. This is the judge getting ready to read Diddy for filth. Diddy says the omitted evidence also undermines two other government allegations. First, that he forced Cassie to participate in freak-offs, and second, that he is a SMEX trafficker or violent. He cites texts from Cassie in which she says, blah, blah, blah. This is all redacted. He then argues that the affidavit should have included the evidence about Cassie's financial motive to exaggerate and falsify. He accuses the government of knowing but impermissibly hiding that Cassie had, I guess, written a book, asked for 30 million, did whatever. Okay, first of all, can we just stop this whole Cassie was looking for a bag thing? It doesn't fly. Cassie already got her bag. Diddy settled a day after Cassie went for a lawsuit. Cassie already got her bag. So why would she be doing this for a bag? She got her money. She could have gone away quietly and kept her dignity instead of having to get on trial at 8, 7, however many months pregnant Cassie is, and actually do things. They said for several reasons, this information was not necessary to the issuing of judge's probable cause finding, okay? They said first, the affidavits already state the obvious that Diddy's stating. The affidavits also acknowledge that Cassie and Diddy were in a long-term relationship. Second, even if Cassie had said that to Diddy, the affidavits details Diddy's use of force and coercion. They said third, although an affidavit cannot be expected to include every piece of information gathered in the course of the investigation, just 2 weeks after one of the messages Diddy himself says should have been included, right? Approximately 1 week later, another text message Diddy says should have been included. Cassie texted him, I love you, whatever. They said these texts, if included in the affidavits, would have strengthened the government's showing of probable cause as further evidence that Diddy physically abused Cassie and coerced her into using blackmail, and that she didn't want to participate in some of the freak-offs. Now, again, This is Judge, and again, this is really bad for Diddy and the jury, because Judge Aaron is pointing out, you guys are cherry picking this. Just because you got one message when Cassie is like, baby, I love you, you're the best. We got 20 other more saying you beat me, you made me, I don't want to do the freak off. Why did you make me do this? Again, the fact that Diddy's team can point to 6 messages saying, oh yeah, I had fun, blah, 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 it doesn't discount the fact that you coerced her, blackmailed her, and had complete control.
Yep, because you could have taken her phone and said those things. I mean, you had complete control. I mean, come on, y'all. You could have taken the phone. You have already, she said something about, I deleted stuff off my phone and he done showed it to me saying that, yeah, I still got it and all this type of stuff. Come on, man. Diddy it could have been anything to make him, oh my God, Diddy. Did he do it? Yeah, he did it. Everybody's saying he
to
did
6 messages saying, oh yeah, I had fun, blah, 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 blah. It doesn't discount the fact that you coerced her, blackmailed her, and had complete control. Judge 𝗟𝗡𝗡𝗞𝗦 is doing the prosecution's job here, and he actually points it out. He says, as evidence to Cassie's civil suit against Diddy, the affidavits already include this information. While the affidavits don't reveal that Diddy eventually blinked to resolve the case, it settled to resolve the case, it is unclear how that settlement undermines Cassie's credibility. Just the opposite. Having already been paid by Diddy, this is the judge's own words, having already been paid by Diddy, Cassie lacked any financial motive to lie. And while Diddy is correct that information as to the confidential informant's credibility must be considered in a warrant application, the Second Circuit also makes a difference and says that there is a difference between professional informants and witnesses like Cassie, who need not be shown to have been previously reliable before the authorities may rely on their statements, okay? In addition, other witnesses are corroborating Cassie's information. For instance, the affidavits state that all that stuff happened. They also state blah, blah, blah. This is redacted. And that Cassie told Dr. One, oh, this is actually good information. You guys, this is breaking news. It's just been confirmed that the doctors that treated Cassie for who knows what, maybe a bore, maybe splitting her head open, maybe stitching her head up, whoever it is, the doctors that treated Cassie actually testified too. So I know a bunch of idiots are like, yo, Cassie's friends are taking up for her. It's not friends. Do you understand the federal government has doctors, security guards that don't work for Diddy, witnesses that saw but didn't say anything? This is not anything about Cassie's friends. They said Cassie's own statements to law enforcement were not the sole basis for probable cause. Finally, and again, you guys, I want to tell you, the judge writing this information to Diddy, letting Diddy know this mess ain't going.
I tried to tell y'all over and over again, man. Somebody got their foot on this man's neck, and they don't even want Diddy to know that it's their foot. They want him to think that he wiggling out of it a little bit. Yeah. It's almost like a Bruce Lee. I know I can kick your butt. I'm just going, just one hand you. I got 2 legs and an arm, and you using everything you got, and I'm just, this is what the judge doing to him. Yeah. Panda, pinky finger. Yeah, all that type of stuff. That's what's happening, man.
He says, finally, even if alleged misstatements and omissions as to victim 1 undercut probable cause on SMEX trafficking, and they do not, Diddy has not argued that they are material to other federal offenses identified in the warrants. The judge says here, the applicants, and that's the feds, sought evidence related to multiple offenses other than sex trafficking. Cassie was also not the only alleged victim of sex trafficking in 3 of the 4 challenged affidavits, and Diddy doesn't show that information about Cassie was necessary to the overall determination of probable cause of sex trafficking when there was evidence as to other victims. You guys, that was a legal drag. He literally told the whole world, Diddy, stop the cap. It's not just Cassie, and it's not just Gina. It's a lot of people we saw. And baby, you are taking advantage of the fact that the public doesn't know what's going on. But I saw the evidence, and I now say, yeah, they went too easy on you. They talk about SMEX worker 1.
Oh my God, that's what I'm trying to tell y'all. That's what I'm trying to tell y'all. Man, they had to do. That's why you think they got 3 different judges on this. Nah, cuz he ain't gonna be able to do it. We're gonna have to sit this dude down, and we're gonna have to tell him, look, we need the best, and we need you to we need you to stick it to him. We need you to know what's going on. Nah, cuz this ain't making it. Not when I seen what I seen. What I seen is about to go down in history. What I seen, this about to go down in history, man. I tried to tell y'all, man, and this dude, this is only the beginning. I swear to y'all. I'm gonna break this all down. I'm gonna go ahead and let her keep cooking, man. She cooking. Yeah, she gonna cook y'all.
So basically they use sex worker one as reason that the warrant should have never been released. The judges, and I have heard that one of the workers is trying to blame Cassie and say that like Cassie's the mastermind, but I don't think that logic holds true, because how can a 19 or 25-year-old girl that has no money of her own, completely surveilled by Diddy, and she can't even talk to somebody without a car being blown up, how can you actually say that she was running stuff? It doesn't make sense. But the judge addresses that. The judge says, but if the government relied on this information in the affidavit, as Diddy says, it should have also included SMEX Workers One's other statements, including that Cassie was the ringleader, to give the magistrate judges a more accurate understanding of what the situation was in Freakoffs. However, the judge says, the government says it didn't have SMEX Workers One other statements when the warrants were sought. And Diddy doesn't have any other specific response to reply. Also, Diddy doesn't challenge SMEX Workers One's statements of the fact that he saw that, for instance, he saw Diddy hit Cassie. Nor was SMEX Worker One the only witness who corroborated Cassie's account of that violence. Again, I believe with this, they are talking about the fact of in the hallway when Cassie was running and they snatched Cassie back and he dragged her back into a freak off, okay? And they go on to say, even if his statement was removed from the affidavits or the admitted material added, statements by multiple other witnesses support the probable cause determination. Again, the judge is saying over and over to Diddy, we don't believe you. You need more people. The judge is saying over to Diddy, you can try to make this about Cassie. Cassie is not the only one. She is not the only witness. And baby, quiet as it's kept, you and I both know Cassie is not your only problem. Assistant.
What about the cook? Yeah. What about the cook? What about the makeup artist? These are the people I'm holding fast on. What about everybody else that you've been bribing once a year, millions of dollars to keep hush hush because of those tapes you've been selling on the black web, is what they call it, the open web or whatever they call it. Yeah, all that type of stuff. How much lies and how much is truth? But I know one thing, you done did something. J-Lo over there hiding guns and don't want to mess with you no more. Even the mama says you shouldn't mess with you no more. The mama, she was serious. I would love to see what Cassie mama says. I would love to see what Cassie mama got to say about this, and her dad and her brother.
Not your the only witness. And baby, quiet as it's kept, you and I both know Cassie is not your only problem. Assistant one. The warrant affidavit states that Diddy, blah, 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 blah. Holmes says, so that means one of Diddy's assistants are going to be either testifying and they might actually be the victim. Now, I do believe that KK has already flipped on Diddy. I do believe that Capricorn Clark, Diddy's assistant, is probably also cooperating with the feds, because Diddy did. Oh, what's that?
Yeah, we got that
Diddy, too. Oh, look at that. Because Diddy.
She must be using ScreenFlow.
Because Diddy literally tried to blacklist Capricorn Clark, allegedly laid hands on Capricorn Clark, treated Capricorn Clark horribly. So this could be KK or it could be Capricorn Clark. We do not know who assistant one is, but they say the warrant affidavits state that Diddy cherry-picked a couple of statements out of context to apply that it wasn't like that when Butler had in fact told the assistant, who's Butler? Wait, they're talking about a butler. We're getting juice as it comes out. Do you think they're talking about Farnsworth Bentley? Farnsworth Bentley was deemed to be Diddy's butler. They're referring to a butler who told Assistant One. When the butler, in fact, told Assistant One something, but the warrant application does include this text. So this can't possibly be an omission, let alone a material one. Diddy also quotes friendly text messages where people are on friendly terms with him. Without these friendly texts, Diddy says, the magistrate judges were given a completely distorted picture of what really happened. Now, this has been Diddy's whole thing the whole time. Yes, you see a picture of me beating Cassie. Yes, you see me hiring workers. Yes, you see me mistreating men and women. However, did you show the text when we were laughing? The judge destroys Diddy. He says, this is another instance where full inclusion of relevant text would strengthen the probable cause determination. While the butler was texting Assistant One, this, that's, and the third, a few days later, Diddy texted the assistant some grimy stuff, okay? Even if these friendly texts were included in the affidavits, the close coordination between Diddy and the butler is more than enough for probable cause obstruction. Diddy also argues that the warrant affidavits, which said that, that's redacted, should have included evidence of basically that he's a nice guy, right? But as victim one and assistant one said before making her statements to law enforcement, at the time she made the statements to law enforcement, she did not have a financial motive to lie. So again, Cassie doing it for a bag, it doesn't make any sense. She had no motive to lie. If anything, she had motive to avoid embellishing her story and embroiling herself in the government's investigation of Diddy. The affidavit stated, based in part on interviews with producer one, that Diddy did blah, 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 blah. Diddy says that this is a misstatement because it was uncorroborated by any other witness and contradicted by boatloads of contrary evidence. Okay, so here they're talking about Little Rod. So the affidavit stated, based on part interviews with producer one, I'm guessing that's Little Rod, that Diddy, I think in his affidavits, he said that Diddy sent him to hire SMEX workers. Diddy had a bunch of videos in his hard drive and that Diddy taped everything. Y'all, if y'all don't know what I'm talking about, please go to the live where I read through Little Rod's legal documents. However, Diddy says that this was a misstatement because what Little Rod said is uncorroborated by any other witness and contradicted by boatloads of contrary evidence, including, and he gives the evidence. Diddy also argues that the government failed to disclose Little Rod's financial incentive to fabricate and embellish, as revealed in the lawsuit where Little Rod, I think, is suing Diddy for like 50K. Diddy says that the government's decision to not rely on Little Rod at trial underscores his lack of credibility. I hear that the reason why Little Rod will not be testifying at trial is because Little Rod was too public. Little Rod gave a lot of interviews. He was all over the place. And get this, the government wants to avoid people that were making a bunch of public statements because they don't want this to turn into a media spectacle. Why? Because there is a case that Mark Garrigo cites where, because it was a media spectacle, the case was able to get overturned. The prosecution is playing this very conservative, but even by conservative, they have Diddy by. Let us not forget that just because Little Rod is not testifying does not mean that he did not give the blueprint for Diddy's whole life to be torn apart. I know Diddy wish he had paid that 50K anyway, right?
Man, I ain't never look at it like that. That's cool. That's cool. Yeah, Lil Rod, they plan it and plan it correctly. I don't think he did a lot of, but then you got Mark Barnes. Well, Lil Rod, Mark Barnes, and all them, they on that HBO special also. Then you got Gene Deal. Gene been talking, man. Gene got his own podcast now, so Gene been doing a lot of talking. So, but one person I know haven't been talking is that one lady. I need to find her name out. She got a different lawyer, y'all. She's the female that was crying while the female lawyer. She has a female lawyer. Then you got a couple of dudes. You got the little 13-year-old. You got a lot of people, man, that you ain't heard nothing from, and that all of a sudden, I think the makeup artist did like one or two little things. The cook ain't said nothing to nobody. Ain't seen no info on the cook. But all these other people talking all this stuff, you might as well put them with Busby, man. That's that they down with Busby. Busby over there doing videos and stuff. Then you had the little girl that was slow, dragging Jay-Z up in it. Now Bugsby going after something smaller fish, Shay Shay. Bugsby going after Shay Shay, y'all.
Diddy says that the government's decision not to rely on Little Rod at trial underscores his lack of credibility, including the missing information in the affidavit would have shown, according to Diddy, that Little Rod's motive to fabricate and tell the government a story that matched the stories of the two victims. However, Judge Aaron says Little Rod's statements about rug use were in fact corroborated Diddy. For example, March 22nd, 2024 warrant application to search Diddy's home stated that they found Tucci, they found tapes of coochie, they found everything. On top of that, let's also not forget that when they got Brandon had all of the narcotics that Little Rod said that Diddy loved that man keeping around. They also said that those affidavits also include several witness observations of rug use that support probable cause for narcotic offenses. And even if what Little Rod, and this is the judge saying this to Diddy, even if what Little Rod said about, Diddy, sex workers, trafficking, all this stuff was taken out of the affidavit as a misstatement, or if every fact about his lawsuit and demand letter was added, Assistant One's nearly identical recollection and supporting information from other witnesses would support a probable cause finding. Every statement in a warrant affidavit does not have to be true. So again, Diddy tried to use Little Rod as the reason why everything taken from the search warrant should be thrown out, because Diddy's team, as I told y'all months ago, strongly feels that Little Rod was the reason why his house got raided. Again, Diddy, you should have stopped being cheap and you should have paid him. You should have paid them. They also I wonder who Assistant One is. There's KK and there's Capricorn Clark. I think that KK might have flipped. I do not think that KK would go to jail for Diddy. So I think that she's giving a chance to be a corroborating witness. I 100% think that KK would take it.
Me too. I think that, because you notice she ain't said too much. I think that they set her down, man. They had to sit her down with some higher ups and say, look here, little girl, now's your chance. I mean, what else? They ain't locked her up yet. Think about it. You passing out all these drugs. You holding people down. The girl said that you try to put an IV in her or put some little thing in her or whatever. And all this stuff. Diddy been doing all this stuff, having IVs with his mama. You ain't seen nothing. You his right hand lady. What you gonna do? You going take this plea deal, or you gonna be on Diddy's side? Cause we can arrest you on. Here go 50 things we can arrest you on. Yeah. So what happened to her, man?
Also, I wonder who Assistant One is. There's KK and there's Capricorn Clark. I think that KK might have flipped. I do not think that KK would go to jail for Diddy. So I think that she's giving a chance to be a corroborating witness. I 100% think that KK would take it. Capricorn Clark, judging by the blogs, there is no love lost between her and Diddy. And I think she would be waiting to tell her story and truth in a way that actually, because Diddy's team is out doing misinformation on all the witnesses. And it's odd to me that now, people have been quiet for years. It's odd to me that now that the trial's about to start, all of a sudden these bottom-feeding leeches are crawling out looking for attention and trying to slander the name of all the victims and all the witnesses. Do you know what I'm saying? Anyway. I'll talk about that in a different video. Diddy also argues when it comes to victim number 2. Now, nobody knows who the victim number 2 is. I do think because they wanted footage sequestered from the fall of Diddy. That is a documentary I was also featured in with the Diddy trial. Because footage was actually sequestered, I do think that they might be talking to victim 2 as either the cook that talked about Diddy, but there was also an Asian girl, I forget her name, not Gina, not Dana, but there was an Asian girl who also said that she was an ex-girlfriend of Diddy. She might be one of the people actually talking, all right? They said that Diddy argues that the government, that's redacted, but the affidavit acknowledges that, I don't know, I'm just gonna guess, it was a tumultuous relationship. The judge goes on to say, even if the affidavits didn't clearly state that sometimes they had good times, they provide detailed evidence that Diddy engaged in a pattern of, I'm guessing, drug use and sex trafficking or abuse and violence. They talk about victim 3. Victim 3 is the one that is on the run. I thought maybe it's 𝗗𝗓𝗓. It might be Aubrey, but it makes me think it's Gina because I don't think Aubrey was ever Diddy's ex-girlfriend. Victim 3 says Diddy argues that the warrant affidavits, which states that Diddy,
poor thing,
financially coerced or whatever, exclude her. She said that she was blank and that Diddy blanked. But if the affidavits had included all of victim 3's public statements, they would have also included, oh my God, y'all, Judge Aaron, you know what? I would like to make a personal apology to Judge Aaron. You know what? Every time I doubt that man, he comes through. Judge Aaron has just confirmed that victim 3 is 𝗗𝗓𝗓. Judge Aaron has just confirmed that victim 3 is 𝗗𝗓𝗓. And this is why, you guys, thank y'all for being here with me to read the legal documents. This is why actually reading through the legal documents is so important, because the tea that is spilled in the actual legal documents, you don't have to listen to anybody to get their opinion, even though I know I'm giving mine. The legal documents will tell you everything. And baby, please know that when I come and say something, 99% of the time I've read the legal documents. Judge Aaron has just confirmed that 𝗗𝗓𝗓 is victim number 3. Do you know why? Let's get into this.
Oh, shucks. Oh my God, I gotta look her up, man. I don't remember the names, y'all. Here we go.
They said, so Diddy is saying that the affidavits that victim 3 gave should have excluded the affidavit for the first, so the request for the search warrant that included some affidavits, which is sworn confessions, that victim 3 gave, he's saying they should have been excluded, right? Because Diddy has proof that victim 3 was cool with them. Look at this. Judge Aaron says, but even if the affidavits had included all of victim 3's public statements, they would also have included a public interview in which victim 3 admitted that he did this and that. Who did a public interview? Which one of Diddy's ex-girlfriends did a public interview? 𝗗𝗓𝗓 did a very public interview with Diddy and told us everything he did to her, according to her. The judge goes on to say, nor do a few positive statements undo the probable cause analysis in which, when the affidavits recount how Diddy abused her, treated her badly, did all this stuff. You guys, this is actually huge what's going on, and that Judge Aaron has also confirmed so much stuff that is going on in the Diddy trial, namely that victim 3 is in fact 𝗗𝗓𝗓, and 𝗗𝗓𝗓 is in fact dummy trying to save Diddy, and now saying she ain't never won. I will say one thing, Gina, Diddy didn't treat you well in the best of times. I'm assuming it's Gina, because who else did a public interview? Diddy ain't treat you well in the best of times. So what makes you think he gonna treat you well after this? Even though everybody acting like you saving him, he's gonna make you pay. Because at the end of the day, they do have sworn affidavits from you with you outlining everything Diddy did to you. So, woo, listen. Again, who said that? Carrie, what's up, Carrie? Carrie Johnson said, Gina continues to make bad choices. I don't understand people where you are at a crossroads and you can either do something that can benefit you or you can make a left and make a really, really dumb decision. I don't understand when you are at that crossroads, those people that continually keep going left. Girl, anyway, I would be worried about the Fed setting a trap. And I would also say this.
Baby.
And by setting a trap, I mean the Fed's watching and letting Gina do herself in. I will say one thing, though. I hope that check cleared. I hope you got something from it. I hope. Anyway, let's get back in. Oh, wait, hold on. Let's get back into this. Where's the rest of my documents, if you will? Let's get into victim 4. Oh, wait. This is clearly sufficient to establish that Diddy used force and coercion to get people to engage in sexual acts. Now, you know what the real gag would be? If they used Young Miami's tweets, where Young Miami was like, girl, you a munch. If I wanted to, Diddy will have you on your MF knees. That's what I want to know. Are they going to use that? Anyway, right? Victim 4. The Warrant affidavit states that blank and that Diddy's employees later blinked. Diddy objects to that. Let's see if we can figure out through Judge Errol giving us a T who this is. Objects that the affidavits left out critical information, including a text to her attorney. And blank. Is victim 4 Aubrey? Capricorn Clark? The government wasn't aware of the blank when the affidavits were sworn. Maybe they weren't aware of the lawsuit or the text. Diddy's only response is that it simply defies belief that the government wasn't aware of this specific evidence. Like victim 1 and assistant 1, victim 4 is not a professional informant whose credibility had to be assessed before the affidavit could rely on her statements. An inclusion of this allegedly missing information would not have necessarily undermined the probable cause determination. Further, while the affidavits detail information about how blank was based on an interview with victim 4, Victim 4's allegations, were based on an interview with Victim 4. Victim 4's allegations were corroborated by phone records. On the day that Diddy's associates, including producer 3, allegedly tried to silence her after the assault. Ooh, who's the producer 3? I'm guessing it's Stevie J. I don't know that, but I'm guessing. I'm thinking producer 3 is Stevie J. Stevie's Diddy's ride or die. They said they tried to silence her after the assault. This evidence enhances victim 4's credibility and at the very minimum provides enough for probable cause. Oh, get this. There's a designer 1. The Warrant affidavits allege that Diddy's representatives tried to silence designer 1. But they didn't mention that blah, 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 blah. Together with producer 1 and victim 4, Diddy says designer 1 was part of some type of orchestrated plot to extort. However, the affidavits already acknowledge that designer 1 contemplated suing Diddy and that the government says that Diddy doesn't contest that at the time of the affidavits, they weren't aware that they were considering suing them. Again, like victim 1, assistant 1, and victim 4, designer 1 is not a confidential informant. So the affidavit is under no special duty to investigate her credibility. Let me just say this really quick. Let's go back to victim 4. Do you think victim 4 could actually be Mana? Because here's the thing. Victim 4's allegations were corroborated by, that's a girl that Diddy allegedly hung out of a 17th floor window. They're saying victim 4's allegations were corroborated by phone records. On that day, Diddy's associates, including producer 3, tried to silence her after the assault. I think this is maybe Bana. Listen.
Oh, wait a minute. Diddy done hung the girl. That's one of Cassie friends, I think, hung up. Yeah. Diddy did that to somebody. And, oh my God. What about the dude that was supposed to be part owner in Bad Boys, some type of percentage, and Diddy made him give the percentage back? You got him? Diddy, you done, God dang, Diddy did it. Did Diddy do it? Diddy did it. He did all this. And Diddy like, I'm going down with a bang, man. I'm innocent. I ain't do none of this. This boy is tripping, man. Is he tripping, y'all? He is tripping.
Associates, including producer 3, tried to silence her after the assault. I think this is maybe 𝗗𝗡. Listen. I think this also, hold on, let me just say.
𝗗𝗡. Hold on, let me see if this 𝗗𝗡.
Okay.
Look at all this stuff being taken out.
They said again, like victim 1, assistant 1, and victim 4, designer 1 is not a confidential informant. So the feds were under no special duty to investigate her credibility before relying on her statements. He also said, Diddy, you have not shown that these alleged misstatements or omissions, lies, are material on their own. You also failed to demonstrate that even when evaluated as a whole, they were necessary to the probable cause determination. The affidavit for the search warrants relies on blah, blah, blah. Diddy doesn't identify any misstatements or omissions in the affidavits as to the corroborating evidence or witnesses or victims who gave the government consistent statements about his physical abuse of female victims, right? Hold on. Moreover, nor does he challenge the veracity of records that serve as further evidence of the subject offenses. So even if everything Diddy challenged is a mistake, or as a misstatement is taken out, and everything Diddy says was inappropriately omitted, was added in, there's still enough for probable cause of the federal offenses identified in the affidavits. At a minimum, Diddy eventually argues an honest affidavit would have stated blah, 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 blah. Listen, but the affidavits already had that information. So the authorizing judge already knew that the information in the applications was not exhaustive and that new evidence would likely emerge at the time. Golly, Diddy, you got dragged up and down. How many more pages is this? Hold on. We're almost done. They said that Diddy fails to show that the affidavits were intentionally misleading or made with reckless disregard of the truth. They said Diddy's motion also fails to make out a substantial preliminary showing. That's under Franks.
Wow.
We talk about that in the beginning. That they intended to mislead. Okay, they cite the court precedents. We already went into Franks earlier. So let's talk about the way Judge Aaron said, yeah, no. They said, while reckless disregard can sometimes be inferred from the omission of critical information, it is harder to show recklessness or intent to deceive where, as is the case here, the omissions are not necessary to the probable cause. Basically, the judge keeps saying over and over again, Diddy, they have you dead to rights. Even if 7 things they said weren't true, 23 were. So, like, what do you want? All they needed was a search warrant. They got it, and they found all this information.
Yeah.
Also, let me say thank you to my super tats. I already said thank you to Victor Wiggins and Jenny Y. Facing Truth. What's up, girls? And hey, Tisa is one of the victims of.
The thing that tripped me out is it's almost like, well, they lied on one thing, but they opened up a can of worms. So what are we supposed to do with all these worms? So y'all was supposed to be looking for worms. Y'all was looking for ants. Yeah, but we was looking for things that don't belong here. Come on, man. Come on, Diddy. Oh, my God.
Is the third. There is a designer. There is an assistant, which either could be Capricorn Clark or KK. There is multiple victims, and they are breaking it down for us. Let me just get to these super chats to say thank you for everybody that is buying me lunch, a cup of.
Where's mommy? Where's the auntie or the mother or whatever she is? Diddy is all twisted up, man. God dang. No wonder why you call yourself Brother Love. You need all the love you can get, bruh.
Marie, I really, really appreciate it. Co for continue to keep me positive. I feel like the energy's there and we feed each other. And I really do appreciate you, Kosi Joe and everybody. Maggie says, who's 𝗗𝗡? 𝗗𝗡 is Cassie's friend. I forget what her title was, but she was Cassie's friend. And Cassie was hiding in her house, and Diddy crashed into 𝗗𝗡's house and literally grabbed 𝗗𝗡 by her chest. I'm not lying. That's it. Grabbed 𝗗𝗡 by her chest and hung her over Cassie's balcony, which I believe was on the 12th or 17th floor up on Wilshires Boulevard. Bonna thought that she was going to die. Cassie was grabbing Bonna's arms like, oh my God, oh my God. I mean, grabbing Diddy's arms like, stop, you're going to hurt her, you're going to hurt her. And then he literally took Bonna and threw her onto the balcony, but he almost murked Bonna. That's who Bonna was. And she was mentioned in Cassie's lawsuit as a woman that he hung over the phone, right? Listen.
The banister.
Again. Anyway, let's get into this, right? The judge digs into Diddy. They said, well, reckless disregards can sometimes be inferred from the omission of critical information, right? We're going to skip over the case law because y'all already know. Do y'all know the case law or do y'all want me to read it? They said it's harder to show recklessness or intent under 𝗟𝗓𝗡𝗞𝗦. It's harder to show recklessness or intent to deceive where, as is the case here, the admissions are not necessary to the probable cause determination. Again, US v. 𝗟𝗓𝗡𝗞𝗦 said where omitted facts would be provided an additional or stronger reason for the judge or magistrate to authorize a requested warrant. A finding that those facts were omitted with reckless disregard for the truth is counterintuitive. US v. Thomas, we cannot conclude that any omission here was made deliberately or with reckless disregard for the truth, where it is clear that full disclosure of the relevant information would only have strengthened the search warrant application. Now, this is important because Diddy keeps trying to say in all this stuff, if y'all knew the truth, if y'all knew the whole story. Judge Aaron is saying, baby, I know the whole story, and I am telling you, no matter what you think, this is not helping you in any way, shape, or form. Anyway, he goes on to say Diddy hasn't done that. He argues that the warrant applications were intentionally misleading because the government had exculpatory evidence in its possession but failed to include it in the affidavits. The government says that it was unaware of most of this evidence at the time the warrant applications were made, so the omission could not possibly have deliberately been designed to be misleading. Exactly. The government made the argument, listen, you don't know what you don't know. Okay, they said that this information was not released by the filter team until months after the March 2024 warrants were issued. And they also said other evidence was only in the government's possession 6 months after the warrant application. And SMEX workers won exculpatory statement. I believe this is the sex worker that's going against Cassie to say that she was the bad one. They're saying the statement that might have proved her innocent said at the time of the affidavits were sworn out, the government was not aware of the size of the settlements received from Diddy. In reply, Diddy makes 3 arguments. First, he says the government's claim of lack of knowledge is unsupported by any evidence, and it simply defies belief. But Diddy bears the burden to make a substantial showing that the standard has been met, okay? Second, Diddy says that the government is imprecise about what the affidavit knew at the time of the warrant application. The court itself received a 12-page affidavit from, I'm assuming one of the attorneys, they're blacking out the U.S. attorneys' names. In the affidavit, it explained exactly, or maybe it's the grand jury, it explained exactly what Diddy did and did not know as to each of the exactly what the government did and did not know as to each of the individuals Diddy says the government admitted information about. For example, victim 1 acknowledged that he knew victim 1. I'm thinking that blank acknowledged that he knew about victim 1's lawsuit against Diddy, but stated he was, I don't know, while Diddy in a supplemental letter claims the government knew and explained that other stuff, this is all redacted, from the documents the government received. He also stated that he was not aware of anything on victim 1's electronic devices other than a single chat thread, and that the laptop was in the filter team's review process until after the warrants were authorized, and he'd only heard that blank at the public bail hearing on September 2024. So this has to be Cassie's, this is speculation. This has to be that Cassie, that whole thing that they said Cassie had a few freak off videos. Remember when they said that the freak off videos were being shown around jail, and Diddy being a perv was showing those in the MDC, was showing it around jail? And remember how Diddy tried to use that as evidence that Cassie liked what was happening to her because she was passing around that thing? SMEX Worker 1 stated, so in SMEX Worker 1's affidavit, SMEX Worker 1 stated he only told him that he blanked which was conducted months after the warrant application. So this is one of the SMEX workers is defending Diddy. Assistant 1. Diddy claims in another supplemental letter that the government possessed additional screenshots of the text conversation between the assistant and, which is either KK or 𝗟𝗡𝗡𝗞𝗦, before the warrant applications were made. And he further argues that the government's possession of the screenshot showed that it was in contact with blank and could have obtained whatever additional context was required. Now, while law enforcement extracted information from that phone, they never reviewed the extractions and they were never aware that Assistant 1 did whatever, but this and that. Producer 1 had no knowledge of whether Producer 1 is Little Rod. Victim 4 sent the night before the March search warrants were made, sent a text and blah, 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 blah. And did not know and does not know if. I'm guessing victim 4 is Bana. Producer 1 is obviously Little Rod. Victim 1 is obviously Cassie. Victim 3 is obviously Gina. Assistant 1 is either 𝗟𝗡𝗡𝗞𝗦 or KK. They said in the letter responding to the affidavit, which has not been docketed, Diddy says only that blah, blah, blah. However, given the lack of evidence of material falsehoods or omissions of the affidavits, the government's showing as to the availability of the information at the time of the affidavits or the Frank affidavit, Diddy fails to satisfy his burden of a substantial preliminary showing of intent to deceive or recklessness. Third, Diddy argues that the Frank's inquiry is not limited to Frank's. Again, if you guys are just joining us, that is a case that said that if they lie on a search warrant, how much lies or omissions or miscalculations can they have on a search warrant before all evidence obtained in the search warrant gets thrown out? They said Diddy relies on collective knowledge doctrine, which provides that under certain circumstances, an arrest or search is permissible where the actual arresting or searching officer lacks the specific information to form the basis for probable cause or reasonable suspicion, but sufficient information to justify an arrest or search is known by other law enforcement. Okay, so he's trying to say that just because one half of the law enforcement might have, like if the left hand is doing something, the right hand should know. That doesn't hold up under Franks, okay? He says that the Fourth Amendment doctrine is generally governed by collective knowledge doctrine. But in the Second Circuit, the doctrine has solely been applied to warrantless searches and seizures. They're the Second Circuit, that's New York. Not to a judge's probable cause determination when issuing a warrant, okay? This makes sense because the doctrine was developed to address fluid, evolving situations in a field where mobile defendants are pursued by large police departments equipped with swift, modern communication technology. These are not the conditions under which judges decide whether to authorize search warrants, and Diddy cites no case applying the doctrine. Even if the government's knowledge could be imputed to these search warrant requests, and it cannot, the judge says, misstatements or omissions caused by negligence or innocent mistakes do not warrant suppression. Diddy identifies no credible or prohibitive evidence of wrongdoing and makes no offer of proof. He concedes as much when in his reply brief, he argues that there is a strong inference of intentional deception based on the government's omissions. But as the court has already explained, no such inference can be made because the alleged omissions, lies, misstatements are not material. Material means they're not central and much less clearly critical to the probable cause determination. Again, probable cause is showing that there is enough there that we should let you go in and search. Courts have recognized that the burden to obtain a Franks hearing, it's a heavy one, and such hearings are exceedingly rare, okay? Diddy fails to show his entitlement to the hearing here. They also say that Diddy is contending that the warrants were unconstitutional because they were general. The Fourth Amendment states that no warrants will issue upon probable cause supported by oath or affirmation or particularity describing a place to be searched and the persons or things to be seized. The particularity, I can't read that, requirement has three components. First, a warrant must identify specific offenses for which the police have established probable cause. Second, the warrant must describe the place to be searched. Third, the warrant must specify items to be seized by their relation to designated crimes, right? They say otherwise, unobjectionable offenses and descriptions of the objects to be seized is defective, it is broader than what can be justified by probable cause. So what would that mean? That means that somebody has a probable cause to search your house. They cannot go into your 16-acre thing and start digging. If somebody has a probable cause to search your house, they cannot dredge your lake. It needs to be in the same ballpark. But they say, Diddy doesn't contest that, at least on their face, the warrants to satisfy 𝗟𝗢𝗡𝗞𝗦's particularity requirements. Instead, Diddy just says that circumstance-specific considerations, here, the sheer breadth of the charges against him, render the warrants unconstitutional. All right? Listen, Diddy used the argument, the government charged his whole life as a racketeering enterprise. Yes, that is what RICO is. Your whole life is a racketeering. Diddy protested and it inappropriately saying that they inappropriately obtained warrants to search his whole life. Such warrants allow the government to evade the Fourth Amendment limit simply by stating that he himself is a sort of criminal racketeering enterprise. To support his position, Diddy points to United States v. Way in a case where comparable warrants were held as unconstitutional. However, he says, Way is an example Diddy cites, and the warrants there are not comparable. In Way, neither warrant at issue set forth the crimes under investigation, which alone is enough to render them insufficiently particularized. They failed to cite criminal statutes or even describe criminal conduct. Here, Diddy, the judge says, the warrants detail the specific crimes under investigation: RICO, sex trafficking, organized crime, The Way warrants Diddy cited also failed to connect the items subject to seizure to the suspected criminal activity. Instead, they called for seizure of expansive categories of often generic items without any meaningful content-based parameter or other limiting principle, which requires the items bear some general. So basically in this, I think he's arguing over the baby oil. They said, Diddy says that, I'm putting this in, it's redacted, that the baby oil and lube the 1,000 bottles, doesn't mean much in this case because the underlying charges implicate all aspects of his life, personal and professional. Because the subject offenses were defined as including all of Diddy's businesses, his households, and his relationships with his girlfriends over the last 2 decades, it's 2 decades. Who was his girlfriend 20 years ago? Wasn't that Kim Porter? Was that not Kim Porter? Anyway, they said that it's hard to think of anything that would not have been related to subjected offenses. In practical terms, Diddy argues it isn't a limitation at all, especially because the warrants authorize seizure of personal electronic devices that could contain sensitive private information. The government responds that the requirement that materials be related to the subjected offenses is a real limitation because the materials were not related to criminal activity, were fully protected from seizure. And because Diddy's decades-long criminal activity was the reason for the large volume of recovered material. Courts in the circuit have observed that long-running, wide-ranging, and complex alleged crimes justify a wide net. Yeah. Let's get through this case law. As the government points out, it is well settled that warrants can authorize seizure of electronic devices if they link the searches to the search and seize to the, if they limit what a search and seize and they can connect it to the suspected criminal activity. He says, finally, even if the warrants weren't that solid, suppression would not be warranted given the good faith exception, which recognizes an exception for exclusionary rule for evidence obtained in objectively reasonable reliance on the subsequently invalidated search warrant. Again, Diddy's a fool. It's a problem whenever the police go bad, but it's really, really hard to get out of things that were actually found in search warrants. Anyway, he goes on to say, as to the first inclusion, the court has already rejected Diddy's contention that the issuing magistrate judges were knowingly missiled. As to the second, Diddy doesn't argue that the magistrate judge who authorized the warrants abandoned their judicial roles. And as the government argues, the warrant applications contain detailed recitations of the evidence from numerous sources, such as 5 different magistrate judges in 3 districts agreed that there was insufficient evidence to probable cause. So the warrants were not so lacking in indicia of probable cause as to render reliance unreasonable, nor are the warrants so facially deficient that it's unreasonable for agents to rely on them. This isn't a case where the warrant, for example, does not arguably include the reference to alleged crimes. Anyway, Diddy got his butt handed to him. Everything from the bottles of lube to what was found in those search warrants, which is all the bulk of evidence, Diddy is a slave to it, and he is not getting out of that. What does that mean for our beleaguered devil? Listen, the judge said, let me give you guys just a thing. The judge said, Diddy, basically, even if I believe everything you're claiming was left out, there's still more than enough dirt to justify the raids. Again, this is bad for Diddy. This is super, super bad for Diddy. Listen, for everybody that joined the live late, I'm going to jump off and do a quick 10-minute recap of all this evidence. We're going to have to do a second live. Mama needs a break. We're going to have to do a second live of the other motion that was denied. It is even funnier than this, but it is a short one. Let me get these videos out. I'll try to go live later on. Make sure you turn your notifications on. You know your girl is going to be covering this trial like it's nobody's business. Listen, you guys, let me know what you think in the comments. Oh, wait, let me read these super chats before I go. Oh, Sharon Young said, thank you so much for the super chat. Hiya, baby. How you doing? Also, Sharon Young, thank you so much for another super chat. I appreciate that. You guys, listen, do you have any questions before I go? Let me just see. Do you have any questions before I go? Listen, what do y'all think it is? What do y'all, listen, Trinity says, Diddy hasn't changed or learned a thing from his incarceration. What's up, Valentine? It's good to see you too. Listen, you guys, Mama needs to take a quick rest. I'm going to put out a quick recap summary of both motions that were denied in case you want to share it with people. Turn your notifications on. Next week's trial coverage is going to be amazing. And with that, I'll see y'all in about an hour because we're going to read these other court documents. The other one is quicker and funnier, but we still got to read through it. All right, I'll talk to you.
I don't know what in the world Diddy is thinking about, young. Oh my gracious, what make it so bad at the end when this comes up right here? I can't even eeny, meeny, miny, moe it, but we're gonna be here all day and all night, baby. I cannot believe that judge is tearing Diddy a brand new one, man. That's all I can say, man. Diddy's being torn a brand new one. Yeah. So I'm trying to filter through some of the bull and everything, but Tisha tells she get right into educating you on what's going on in the case. Some of these big words and all this stuff. She just breaks it all the way down, man, and she educating me. I know that much. Look here. I'm gonna get on up out of here. Hey, y'all take it light, take it slow. Tell them Uncle Mike told you so. Peace out. Ha ha ha.